And a very, very happy Monday to you. If you're not looking at your stock portfolio, you're probably making the right move as the Dow at this hour is getting absolutely clobbered. And we've got so much to talk about. I want to bring in my very special guest, the founder and president, CEO of Freedom Mortgage, Stan Middleman. Stan, how are you?
Morning.
How you doing?
All's well. Doing pretty good.
Excellent, excellent. The last time I saw you, you were being serenaded by the great Katy Perry. So we'll start off on a light note here as we share that very moment. That was a hell of a concert, a hell of a show at last year's NBA Annual in Denver. We're about 190 days away from the NBA Annual in Las Vegas, Nevada. That was a great show. Were you satisfied?
Yeah, I thought she was terrific. We were very happy. It seems that our customers were pretty happy about it. I know the folks that put it on worked hard and did a great job, and we were really happy.
She wasn't feeling well. Did you know that? Yeah, she had a cold.
She was not feeling well, and she's a trooper. She sucked it up and went and did what she needed to do. She just celebrated her birthday. It later came out that she was on a yacht in the south of France with Jeff Bezos and his girlfriend. I guess she made it back and survived the evening in Denver. So she did a pretty good job by us.
Yeah. As you sit up there on that perch, it just so happened to be, I doubt it's always like that, but as you in that moment, if you can go back just for a minute, and I'm curious to know, as you put on this event that so many people enjoy, you saw that sea of people, 2,000 to 3,000 people. What goes through your head as you look down there and see all of those people? You're bringing so much joy to them.
Well, first of all, it's very nice. And I think it's important. The NBA is a very important organization, and it's important for a lot of reasons. One, it gives us a forum to get together as an industry, and it provides a great opportunity for networking and deal making and customer engagement. But I think above all, if used appropriately, it gives a tremendous lever for knowledge and knowledge development and gathering. And I think that that's the real value that comes from the MBA. And that's really the way that I've approached it over the 35 or so years I've been involved, is that I've always come away with an increased level of understanding of various topics that were perhaps less clear to me when I got there than they were when I left. So hopefully a lot of people came away with that same feeling, and we contributed to that growth, either personally or as a company or an organization, and help people move along that path. And, in the old days, the agencies used to throw parties like that. And then they calmed down, and then the NBA started to do one, but it was never really up to snuff. So I thought we could step in and really do a big job. And fortunately, we've had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I know you're not ready yet to announce the next act, which is going to hit the stage in Las Vegas, October 19th to the 22nd. But, you said a lot of the plans are in place and people are going to really love it. So just want to thank you in advance for whatever that act is. We're just a few hours away from the advocacy conference kicking off here in Washington, D.C. And you talk about the NBA. It's an interesting time because I don't get the sense that they have a real footing yet. There's still cabinet positions that are open. We've got so many other things happening right now. You feel for the NBA a little bit at this time at all, that they've gone from this administration where they had really solid footing into right now a lot of uncertainty.
Well, I don't know if uncertainty is bad. And I don't know that knowing something that's bad well is better than not knowing something that may be better. There was a tremendous amount of uh, intrusive behavior by certain agencies that probably overstepped the boundaries of what should have been. And I can't blame anybody for being ambitious or zealous or ideologically motivated, because I'm sure their intentions were more pure than I understood. Yet that didn't mean that they didn't overreach or overstep, and I think we had some of that. I think
Yeah.
There was not as clear a trail of direction as there may be today. So I appreciate the fact that maybe they're not as well positioned from a personnel standpoint and from a listenership at this point. Because and by the way, every time you have a new regime, you have new people and you have to get to know them, and it takes a little while. And we've seen this happen a wazillion times, right? Especially old guys have seen it more than once or twice. And the reality is it always takes a while to get your footing with the new organizations and know what they're thinking about and know where they're going. This organization feels like it had kind of an off-Broadway trial in it, and it's trying to iron out the wrinkles that it didn't get right the first time. I think they have a clear agenda that may not be clear to everybody else, but I think it's clear to them, and they seem to be methodically moving through it. It was certainly premeditated, and I think they expected to have the chance to put it into operation. And I think that if nothing else, it appears decisive.
Yeah. Well, I listened to another interview of yours. You kind of just intimated again that some people overstep their boundaries, and the CFPB is a great example. Zealots, I think you called that agency or some of these other agencies around that really maybe got above their skis. But to make it clear, I also heard you say that the CFPB, it's important. We need them on the beat. So if you could just expound on that a little bit, I think our listeners would value it.
So, because you're doing something that's important doesn't mean that you have to have center stage all the time. And you can do a valuable job, and if you're doing your job well, nobody knows that you're doing it, right? The guys that are really good at what they do make it look easy, and make it look seamless, and make it look ordinary. And I would have preferred not to try and grab headlines for headlines' sake. Managing industries through headlines is probably never a great idea.
Yeah.
And it's a reflection on our society, truthfully. There are narrative advancements by people that are zealots, and both, frankly, in the over governmenting and under governmenting point of view, and it should be. We need more ordinary type behavior, and maybe less radicalism, and that's kind of what I was trying to say. It's zealousness is wonderful for young people that are trying to make their way in the world. For those of us that are trying to make a living, certainty is probably more important.
Yeah, and I know that you think so much of the industry and the people in it, and that we are still paying the price. I mean, this is my opinion. We're still paying the price in some ways reputationally from the financial crisis, when we've got a great bunch of people that follow the rules by and large. And so we're definitely sunk up on that. I just real quickly before we get to what's been happening, right, because we're not talking about current events yet, with regard to the NBA and RESPA. there's a white paper that they published recently asking for RESPA reform. It's a 50-year-old law that hasn't been really tinkered with much. Just wanting to know your opinion on RESPA reform, and do you support the NBA in maybe
Yeah, if
looking
it's
into
not
that?
broken, why fix it? I think RESPA worked fine, and it's worked for 50 years, and it was monumental in its moment. And I think it made clear behavior that was unacceptable, and it gave clear guidelines and borders as to behavior. And I think that was important. I think the reform that we had in terms of disclosure of fees and information like that kind of piggybacked RESPA, was also valuable. It was difficult. It was challenging. It cost a lot of money to get it in place, and that's, in today's world, it's the cost of the change, and the speed of the change, and the lack of clarity around change that's problematic, not necessarily the problem. So it's not so much what are the rules, it's how are the rules implemented, and how constructive are the rule makers in those rules execution, so that if you're getting something wrong because you had to change 2,000 fields, and you have a technological glitch that gets between you and adhering to the letter of the law, yet no consumer harm is done, maybe your regulator should work more closely with you. And I find that the new approach seems more to be about supporting people who are working towards not having consumer harm. And I think that's the bottom line. You don't want to have any consumer harm, and you don't want any misleading information. And I think that our industry does a great job of disclosing information and making sure that the consumer is treated fairly.
Yeah,
And if there are people that are going to step out of bounds on that, they should have their feet held to the fire.
yeah. You and I sat down 160 days ago. I was so grateful for the time you gave me at MBA Annual. So much has happened. We talked about your book, Seeing Around Corners, which is just over, I think, your left shoulder, achieving success in business and in life. And I'm wondering, as you've done so well, being able to see what's around the bend, if you could have ever envisioned that 160 days later, Rocket Mortgage would have acquired Redfin and Mr. Cooper. Was that in your globe? Did you see that potentially coming, or something like that, as you look at consolidation?
Not necessarily that, but I did expect consolidation. And I expect that to continue. Our industry is uniquely fractured, and it has been for the entire time I've been involved. Most industries look more like Coke and Pepsi than they look like the Seven Dwarfs and 50 Children of the Seven Dwarfs. The reality of our industry is that nobody has a significant market share, and as large a transaction as Cooper and Rocket are. And by the way, they're both fine companies, and I think it was a brilliant decision on the side of Rocket, and a brilliant decision on the part of Mr. Cooper to get together. They will do fine together, but that's not the end. That's probably the beginning. Redfin probably is less of an issue today than it may be, and I wish them luck, and I hope they're able to make that work. But the reality is that I think we're going to see more activity like that. If you had asked me about consolidation, then I would have told you I anticipate consolidation, and I think that's going to continue. If you see, the largest servicers are growing, and that hasn't been the case for many years. We had Wells and Chase downsize, and when Wells was $1.5 trillion in servicing, which was many, many, many units more than $1.5 trillion in servicing represents today. I said that if they left the uh, mortgage business, that there weren't enough of the rest of us to pick up the ball, and from the fallout if they left the business, and that was true at the time. Uh, Now that that is kind of spread out and kind of like water, it found its own level. And I would expect to see more consolidation. And I think that that's a pretty significant thing on the horizon.
So last year, 2024, you were second, I believe, overall in overall volume. 122 billion was the numbers. A billion, yeah, it's 122 billion. Well, you get lost in in these numbers, but from the outside looking in, Stan, as you're one of the biggest
Oh, it would
servicers
be
out.
bad for me if I got lost.
I do. That'd just be terrible. Yeah, you just keep knowing what you know, and I'll keep knowing half of what you know, or if I'm lucky, you've forgotten more than I know. I understand that. But in all seriousness, from the outside looking in, just practically speaking, Mr. Cooper is a big servicer. They're a big player in the game. Now they've aligned with an originator, and there are a lot of people that say, "All right, I'm not going to, play around in that sandbox anymore." Doesn't that open up opportunity for you from a servicing standpoint to pick up market share?
We expect to pick up market share.
Okay, excellent. So, with regard to more activity in mortgage, where does this move give you not pause, but the moves that Rocket made? Does it make you look? Does it open up your eyes to making acquisitions or moves? That could even further strengthen Freedom's place. Obviously, you're not going to give me any details, but I'm curious to know, as the straight shooter that you are, how you look at it through that prism.
I believe there will be consolidation, and I think that we'll be participants.
That's outstanding. Well, thank you for that candor. I expect nothing less. Now, I had heard that, well, first of all, of the 122 billion, because I couldn't track this down, off the top of your head, because again, you know all the numbers, what percentage of that is retail? Is that like 12 billion? Is it like 10% roughly, somewhere in there?
So think about it more this way: as volumes drop, so does retail. As volumes rise, retail becomes a more significant portion of the total volume that you do. And that's the way it behaves here at Freedom. I don't know if everybody else works that way, but what we try and do is when the volumes are low and the servicing value is greater, we pay more for the servicing and acquire it more through our correspondent third party channels. When servicing is down in value, we try to originate more and build our servicing portfolio through retail, and try and run us ourselves more significantly in the retail channel.
Got it. Yeah, so I wanted to just touch on retail. Is that an area of opportunity that you're leaning into? I had heard you were building something up to maybe go deeper in the pool on retail.
Well, so retail is the girl we brought to the dance, right? We've always been in retail.
Yeah.
And we have always been in retail through direct to the consumer. We don't really go through realtors to get our retail production. And we believe that people that build those relationships and provide that expertise and service are really valuable. And we like to attract those loans through our third party origination. And that's why in a purchase driven environment, we're more active in third party acquisition, because those relationships become more valuable and more important. In lower interest rates environments where there's more refinance activity, that's when we're more involved in the retail side. And I think it's important to understand that the purchase money business doesn't really move around very much. The range doesn't go up and down with interest rates as significantly as refinance activity, clearly. And there is certainly some interest rate sensitivity to our industry, whether it's purchase money or refinance, but it's a little more dramatic in the refinance area than in the purchase area. But that's why third party activity for us is much more active in a period of higher interest rates than it is in a period of lower interest rates.
Well, I'm thinking high level. Some people are looking at the Rocket, Mr. Cooper alignment and saying, you know, I don't want to go anywhere near that. If you went really heavy into retail, suddenly you could be sort of in the same position where people at retail that are selling you loans are like, whoa, you know, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I want to ask you about you mentioned direct to consumer and Rocket acquiring Redfin. There's the one missing piece that I look at when I look at Rocket, and certainly they're a very successful, amazing company, as you've said, is this idea that people, the next generation of homeowners, Gen Z, the new cohort, that they will transact virtually, right, and that it's not potentially that crucial to be in the neighborhoods all the time. It's a bet that they'll lean more into technology than they will into neighborhoods. I'd love to know your viewpoint on originating loans inside of communities vis-a-vis, you know, with technology as the leader. What you think about that?
So bricks and mortar are expensive. Loan officers with relationships where they get paid as rainmakers are expensive. The cost to originate a direct to the consumer loan is maybe 30 basis points, at the most 50. The cost of originating a loan through a brick and mortar retail driven environment probably is more like 300 basis points, 350 basis points. And it's hard for 350 basis points of cost to compete with 50 basis points of cost. And if that 50 basis points were 11, it would be harder still. And I think that that's kind of the nature of the game. Is there always going to be a place for expertise and value added and time spent with the consumer and the realtor and building those relationships? Relationships are valuable. Are they going to be as valuable in the commodity driven environment that we have moved towards over the last 25 years? And every year it becomes more and more significant of a commodity driven environment. So I think that the value of relationships and the value of bringing strong brick and mortar behavior and localized lending is valuable. I'm not sure it's the everything that it was in the 1980s. In 1980 or 1990, when I was busy trying to develop direct to the consumer, there was no one in direct to consumer. I think it was us and Rocket, who was then Quicken, who were maybe Rock Financial at the time. So if you go back in the day, there weren't a lot of people that chose to be direct to consumer because it was harder and it was expensive and it took a long time to develop and it took a lot to maintain and it was a new thought. Now it's not a new thought, but it is in the hands of a few doing a lot of the volume when the volume is there to be done in an efficient fashion.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that explanation. And I think most people would concur that it's moving towards, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. And speaking of numbers, the numbers on the Dow not looking pretty right now. I think it's down 12, 13% just since I think it's in the last year since Trump took office. In any case, we know there's a lot of red out there. There's a sea of red, too much red. And when I sat down with you last, you had talked about all of the things that could happen. Tariffs was one of those things that could happen. But, you also said a month ago that you felt like interest rates would settle in somewhere this year in the 5 3/4 to 6% range. That the 3.5 10-year note to 3.6 sort of felt right to you, but that was a month ago. So much has changed since
like
then.
that now, doesn't it? And
One more time.
I think it looks like that now, and I think this is this year. So I would say we're kind of trending exactly where I thought we would.
Okay, got it.
Here's the thing. So what did we get that's a little bit of a surprise? It's how we got here that's interesting. I think the layoffs of the federal employees and the massive move to right size government probably is the biggest surprise. I think the drive to right size the government was not something that we anticipated. And the ripple effect on employment, which we have not felt,
That's right.
will determine the future of where interest rates go and how low can be. If we got another 100 basis points and we got the 10-year down to the 3 land, right? If we got down, three-ish, even high twos, if there was a significant change in unemployment, that would not be surprising. For it to get there, though, you have to have the ripple effect or the impact of the change. Yeah, government's been the biggest industry and the biggest growth industry in our country for 4 years, right? And for longer than that, if you looked at it now, kind of that lens. So the changes, I think, can be pretty significant. The last time we saw something like this was around Reagan, when they right-sized the government, and there was a lot of people out of work. And that led to a whiplash and a lot of changes in our economy. But the fact that markets are down, I think I mentioned that I thought they were overbaked.
You did, yes, you did. Yeah, you mentioned that your house values were hot, and you felt like, on the eights, which is your thing, misery on the eights. And I'm just wondering if that time frame has moved up a little bit, given what we're looking at right now.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you're still going to see us trend that way because we haven't seen interest rates fall. And when interest rates fall, prices of homes will rise. You'll get some offsetting inflation before you get the massive correction. I think that you'll see the markets bounce back. I think this is probably a typical market overreaction. The markets, I don't think, are bad. I think the stock market is bad. The economy's not bad. The market's bad. And I think the market will cure. People will find this to be a buying opportunity at some level, and that the market will bounce back, and maybe not as much as some people would like. But markets go up and down. That's what they do. Markets have corrections. Yeah. That's what they do. I think the next correction will be bigger than this correction. I think you're getting a little bit of a market correction, but I don't think you should run out and sell your stocks. I don't think we're at a point where we're facing economic collapse, and all my expectations for 28, which are more dire than this. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to get a 30% correction. But I wouldn't mind or be surprised at 15. And then I wouldn't be surprised if it came back a little too. And I think this can lead to higher unemployment, lower interest rates. How much, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
But and rising house values. And then I think the next correction will be more significant than this one.
Yeah, so we didn't get a chance last time. We'll just have a couple more minutes here to talk about rising home prices and what's going to happen. You just told us right now you think that they're going to maybe continue to go up as rates go down. So appreciate that context as well. Well, Stan, we're getting close to the end here. Anything you want to add? Any message you have for your clients, the mortgage industry? Anybody out there listening? There will be lots of people watching this for sure.
I'm excited. I think we have a great opportunity. I think everybody, rising tide floats all boats. And I heard a rumor that our business was interest rate sensitive. So those people that believe that rumor should probably do pretty well in a falling interest rate environment. And I think that's great for everybody. So I think there's some but I don't think we're going to see life changing interest rates. I don't think we're going to see monumental changes. I think we're going to see a pickup in the mortgage origination business in the home finance space. I think we're going to see some higher values of properties, and all those things will tend to work out well for the residential home finance business.
Yeah, and that's not going to address the shortage though in housing. Do you have an idea on the best way to address that? There's been so many of them thrown around. What's your best idea to improve inventory?
Well, I think you're going to see that inventory start to improve itself. There's an awful lot of multifamily coming online. There was a lot of multifamily done last year. That's going to be coming online this year. I think there's some units that'll be available. I think that they're going to try and boost that, and I think that might be a dangerous thing. Uh, but we're going to have to pay attention. I try not to solve inventory problems. Inventory problems are going to be solved by people reaching conclusions that are based on building. You have a lot of people locked in at lower interest rates that aren't going to run too fast to change. So the amount of activity is going to be limited by the amount of demand that's created by those people that have changes in lifestyles rather than changes in opportunity. Having said all of those things, you also have a big percentage of the population that is aging and a lot of housing supply that's going to be available from that
Oh
aging
yeah,
population. And I think that that's underestimated in how much housing inventory that represents.
Stan, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
The one behind my ear here.
You're too quick, man. Yeah, that one. I mean, I was assuming it was an elephant. I see two legs and a trunk.
It is.
What is it with the elephant? With the elephant, is there
There's
a
always an
metaphor
elephant.
behind it?
There's
There's always
always
an
an elephant.
elephant. Is that what that picture means to you?
That's what it means to me.
Yeah. Well, you're an author now, and I loved your book, Seeing Around Corners, achieving success in business and in life, and you've certainly done that, and you continue to give back to so many in the industry. Um, I'm part of an IMB. We needed to recapitalize. You were there for us, and so want to thank you for being there. And it works. It's a relationship that works. It's fair, and we're still thriving. You're still thriving. So I want to thank you for that. And then lastly, the Philadelphia Phillies, a team where you're a minority owner in the Phillies. Are 7-2 right now. So are you having fun? And I know championships aren't won. There's so much to go between 162 games and 9 played. But as far as starts are concerned, you have to be pleased.
Yeah, we're off to a quick start. Good weekend against the Dodgers. They came in undefeated. We took 2 or 3, so that was fun. And I expect it to be a great season for us. We're very hopeful, but we need a lot of luck and we need a lot of good health. And if we can get those 2 things, I think comes the fall, we should be in a good position to maybe make some noise. Hopefully, we're going to get enough of those 2 key ingredients to go along with all the talent that we've accumulated and all the work that we've done. But I think we can be good. I'm really looking forward to it.
Good. Well, you're having fun, obviously, and I want to thank Ellen Longo, your VP of Public Relations, for being all over this interview request, and also thank Donna Chichevsky on my side. I've really enjoyed this, Stan. I hope we can do this again, in another 160 days. You're very gracious with your time. You don't have to say yes. So, I can't thank you enough for saying yes. And I'm not going to make a scene at this year's NBA annual. I promise. I don't care who the artist is. Thanks so much for your time.
It was a pleasure, and I'm sure it'll be great.
Hope
Thanks
to see you
again
again soon. All right, Stan, take care. That's Stan Middleman. He is the founder and president, CEO of Freedom Mortgage. Hope you really enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll see you again next Monday on 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So long.